Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of Our Years. This is Barry.
I'm Rima.
The other day I was actually asking Rima if she remembers that one time when I was back on the dating apps and I had to look up some first date questions to ask and the do's and don'ts of going on the first dates and asking questions.
Yeah. You were rusty and you were like getting
so
back
rusty.
at it.
And I think it was just, it's been a long time since I was back on the dating apps. Yeah, and I think like I just needed to feel a little bit of confidence in the questions that I would think I was going to ask.
You're like, what is the youth of today asking each other?
And I had to Google that, and no shame for Googling, especially with like Claude, Gemini nowadays, you can get pretty good advice.
Take all the help you can get.
Exactly. And so we thought it might be a good episode to discuss what we think are good and bad.
Yeah. I remember this was when the first GPT model came out.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes.
Which was, a few years back. And Barry was on this journey on like, what do you ask people on your first date? So I was like, okay, give me some tips and tricks. And we had just moved to SF. So she's like, oh, let's learn some fun facts about SF. And then that's a good like icebreaker on dates. I'm like, yeah. So then I'm like, give me some fun facts. And one of the things that she told me was that the Coit Tower in SF.
Listen, I didn't tell her this.
Yeah, the Coit Tower in SF is actually like some sort of memorial for the first female firefighter in SF who died during the fires.
Is that true?
Yeah, and it's not because and so then I take this fun fact and I go on a date and I tell this to a person and he's like, that's fully untrue.
Well, first of all, okay, this is not me telling Rima. This is, first of all, we were at the park and we were just chilling and we thought it would be a good idea to look up fun facts about San Francisco.
Because we were both rusty.
Exactly. And we were just like, well, we moved into a new city. We should learn about the city. And so we were like, hey, GPT, what are fun facts about SF? And they said that the Coit Tower looks like a hose, the head of a hose. And that's to
signify the female firefighter.
Right. Oh, well, I don't know about the female firefighter.
Yeah, see, she's forgotten all the
all I remember is that the Coit Tower's head is supposed to symbolize the head of a fire hose.
Yeah, none of that is true.
Well, it's also not on me to go and
fact check.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like she decided that would be a good idea to bring that to her first date.
I'm on my first date and I'm excitedly telling this person these fun facts and they're like,
This is all to say that, we really need to
help.
Yeah, exactly. We really need to do our research on what makes good first date questions and hence this episode.
Correct. What is a good first date question?
I think honestly, like in the grand scheme of things, or just like to generalize everything, questions that provoke curiosity or questions that invite conversation and discussion. Like one word answer, like yes, no questions are just out of the picture. Like I don't think you should be asking those. Yes, sure, here and there, now is okay. Yeah. But that's not really what's going to get the conversation going and help you understand or get to know this person.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just, you don't even have to think of it as a first date. Just in any conversation, if you're not curious about the other person and you're not asking questions and you're not being vulnerable,
exactly,
the conversation's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So we were both thinking like, okay, per our dating experiences, like let's put together what were some of the good questions that we've received in the past and what are good questions we thought we've asked, because obviously the feedback kind of solidified or kind of encouraged us to...
It was a good first date.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically we came up with a list and we're going to share them here and you guys let us know what you think. And we can chat through them, see if they're actually good or not. And then we also wanted to walk through some bad ones.
And there are lots of bad ones.
And so for the guys watching, please take notes because this is from a girl's perspective.
Correct.
Per your experience, just thinking back, what has been the best first date question that you've ever received?
I think someone recently asked me how I vacation. And I thought that was a really good question because it's one, it represents who I am right now.
Sure.
And then I also gave this person history about what I did enjoy in the past and what sort of vacations I took in the past versus what I like now.
Yeah.
And how I've changed as a person. So it was such a layered question.
Right.
We were not just talking about a vacation, we are just talking about how we've changed as people. So I thought that was a really nuanced question. And I think it's just, as you grow older, the way you vacation is so different. And I think the conversation became about that. And it was really engaging.
I feel like that is a really good question because as you're talking through your answer, there are so many points where you can ask more questions. And I think that's what makes a good first date question is when the answer itself will invite more questions.
Yeah. And I think it's also very telling about the person, right? Like, whether this person just likes lounging or do they like activities or do they like super active vacations.
And if they said that all they wanted to do was be at home, what would you do?
Then
you'd be out.
I guess then that you have different ways of unwinding and enjoyment and maybe you're not compatible with each other.
Yeah.
If you're not that kind of person.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to also figure out how this person unwinds. Do they even take vacation? A lot of people.
That is true.
A lot of people don't even like taking vacations.
I think that's especially true in the Bay, though, because everybody's kind of like in the grinds.
Yeah.
So I think that's especially true here. And dating here, that would be a very excellent question to
Yeah,
ask.
exactly. Like, and I think it's similar. Offset is like, how do you enjoy your free time at all? Like at the end of a long day, what do you do to unwind?
Right.
So similar themes for unwinding.
That's true, and that's also helpful to kind of gauge what sort of vacation or compatibility the two of you would have.
Yeah, because you're going to be taking a lot of vacations with this person.
Well, I mean, you don't get that many vacations.
That is a different conversation. Assuming that this person you're going to go on 3/4 of your vacations with going forward.
Exactly.
If you both don't like the same things in life, then it's not
tough,
it's
for sure.
You're incompatible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think along similar lines is a question that I've asked and that has gotten a lot of engagement is for example, like a typical Sunday, what do you do? Like, give me what it would look like waking up in the morning. From what time you wake up in the morning to what you're having for dinner. Like a whole day, what your ideal Sunday or typical Sunday would look like.
I like that because you find out what their hobbies are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also, it's along the same lines of like how they spend their free time.
Yeah.
I guess these questions are honestly just a different way of asking how do you spend your free time, which could kind of be a bland question because it's kind of like asked so much. And you kind of just zhuzh it up a little with a little vacation. A little
you gotta spice Sunday.
It up. Yeah. And I think like it's a good question to invite conversation because honestly weekends are so real. Like for me, I treasure my weekends so much, and if you and your partner don't align on what you do on weekends, like that's the only time you get to see them more,
especially if your work week is crazy.
Exactly. And so if you're not aligned on how you want to spend your weekend, maybe that's a bigger problem. And
then you can also find out if a person is a homebody versus they like being outdoors. Do they like trying different food, restaurants? Do they like going out? Do they like just playing games?
Hang out with friends?
Do they have friends?
Do they have friends? Do they have like side projects they're working on? What do they care about? I think is critical. I've had like some people tell me, they just kind of like go to the gym, do groceries, and I'm like, sure, that's adulting. But then for me, because Monday through Friday is so like intense work, on weekends I like to do something fun for myself. Groceries, yes, I'll still do it. I'll find time maybe during the week to do it, but then on the weekends I like to go do something that I wouldn't typically do on a Monday to Friday.
It's like you're reclaiming. A question I got asked recently is what kind of music I like. And I thought that was a really good question because the kind of conversation that flowed after that was one, how we enjoy our music. Like we just come back from Coachella. So we were talking about that. So that was cute. And then we talked about whether we like live music versus not. Who influenced our music tastes and preferences.
That's true.
And it sort of like goes way back. You really start thinking about in your life, like how did you first start discovering music? How did your tastes first start developing? And as you've gotten older, how it's changed? So I thought that was a really good question.
It's quite interesting is that when I was dating, I think there were some people that don't even listen to music. And that was quite interesting for me because I was just under the assumption that everybody listens to music, you know.
Yeah.
Like when you go to the gym, you listen to music. When you like are
commuting.
Yeah, commuting, you're listening to music.
Yeah.
And when this person was just like, oh, I just don't listen to music.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that was like a new world to me because I was like, it's good in a way that he could be so comfortable with himself
and so focused on something.
Yeah, and his thoughts that you know he doesn't need music.
Yeah.
And so like that, you know, asking these questions are also a way to find out more about yourself.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, whoa, I don't know if, you know, like I enjoy having music playing in the background when I'm even at home, right? And so like to talk to someone who doesn't do the same, I think that kind of just like brought a new perspective for me.
Yeah. Why do you think you like listening to music?
You know, it's funny. I think I previously saw like an interview of this couple and they were talking about exactly about that. Like the guy is like super introverted and the wife is extroverted. And she says that she just likes something going on in the background at home. So she'll either have the TV on or she'll be playing music. She just likes to have that ambiance of like something's going
lively,
on.
something lively. Yeah,
exactly. But then the husband was like, oh, well, I like, you know, I like it when it's like quiet and calm and peaceful, and so he doesn't like the music. But then they kind of just like compromise. But I'm just like, that's so interesting, and maybe it's a representation of introvertedness or like extrovertedness.
Yeah, I think the question when I was asked and then I started thinking about my musical influences, I also started thinking about like the first few songs I remember like listening to, like the Beatles and ABBA, and how I started listening to it and the road trips we take.
Your age is showing.
Okay, we're the same age-ish. And I think and then we started talking about like what sort of vacations we take as kids, and like, you know, on road trips what sort of music we'd listen to and stuff like that. So it really became like a really engaging conversation.
Yeah, I've only recently started to feel this, but music is actually so intimate. Like it's something so revealing about your personality, right? Like whether you listen to rock or you listen to classical or you listen to like hip hop or like, you know, R&B. Like I think especially the particular songs that you enjoy, I think is so revealing of who you are as a person or what you're going through.
Yeah. I this triggered a memory where someone asked me what my guilty pleasure song is, where I would not tell people that I like this song, but I actually really like this song.
What's your guilty pleasure?
It's Lil Wayne's Lollipop. It's a good song.
That makes sense.
Lil Wayne is an artist. Sure. He's a poet.
We'll be putting this on the internet.
What is your guilty pleasure song?
High School Musical.
Okay, fair. That's worse.
That makes sense for me.
That makes sense to me.
One Direction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think music is a good one. I think along the same lines as like movies. What movies you enjoy, what's your favorite movie, or like what's a good movie or book you've recently seen. So books, music, movies, I think entertainment wise, these are all good indicators of what they like to do in their free time and also what sort of genre they're into.
Yeah, for sure. If they're like, they spend their Sundays, I was on a date recently and this guy was like, he spends his Sundays watching football.
Oh. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sure. I watch sports sometimes.
Correct.
But if they're spending every Sunday watching football,
you know that's not how you want to spend your time. So.
And teach their own.
Correct. It's just a way to find out whether you guys are compatible or not. So I thought that was a good question.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then that also invites the question of whether you'd be okay with coming to watch the game with me or not, or do you feel like Sundays need to be spent together? This all invites conversation, right? And then at the end of the day, like, it's not to say, oh, okay, he watches football on Sundays, that means we're not compatible.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you talk through it, and how does he give feedback or react to you guys discussing it? That is what you decide on. Whether you want to continue with this person or not.
I think a lot of these questions, you're trying to get at a particular thing, right? Even with these questions like, how do you spend your Sundays? You're trying to find out if this person's introverted, extroverted. Right. You're trying to find out how they like spending their free time, how they like unwinding. But if you just ask a person, like you just sit down and be like, hi, hello, I'm Rima. How do you enjoy your free time? It's so stilted. The conversation doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly.
So I think it's a lot of like, these questions are how do you mask what you're trying to get at, but in a way that isn't so sort of like an interview style. Right? Because then you're not having fun on this date, and it's the first date.
For sure. Yeah, and I also think like just like even if it's like a disagreement, how do you guys overcome that disagreement? That I think is a bigger indicator for me as to whether or not I want to move forward with this person.
Yeah.
Because I think it's totally okay and totally fine to have different hobbies, different interests.
Yeah.
As long as there's some overlap. Like I feel like it may be a little difficult if it's like completely no overlap.
Yeah. And you're just basically roommates.
Yeah, exactly. I guess.
Yeah. I think a good first date or a good first date conversation is where it doesn't feel like you're on the spot and someone is just like taking an interview.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's actually happened to me previously. So I went on this date where I felt like I was really interrogated. Like it almost felt as if, and mind you, he was like a super kind-hearted, very sweet man. But I think he was just in this rush to want to get to know me fully.
Right. He had an agenda.
Yes,
Yeah.
on a first date. And so it almost came as if he had like a prepared list of questions that he wanted to ask me.
Yeah.
And so it was just like question after question after question instead of, okay, this question invites
A conversation.
yes,
Right.
or a discussion, or then there's follow-ups to the question. There weren't follow-ups to the question. It was more so, okay, after this question, I'm going to ask question 2, ask question 3. And so again, you know, on a first date, I think the goal of it is for you to kind of get to know the person through natural conversation. And I get this guy's intention,
Yeah,
right? He was
yeah.
trying to get to know me, but in a way that was so structured that it felt unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough. Especially because the person who is coming with the questions, and if they've already been like, hey, these are 20 questions I want to get through this date,
Sure.
they've already thought it through.
Exactly.
And they're just like waiting for a response for the other person. It's
Exactly.
unfair for the other person who's not thought about
Yeah.
it, and they're just on the spot.
Yeah.
And it's like awkward because it's also a stranger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That brings me to another anecdote from another date. The guy was super accomplished, a very actually well-known guy in VC here in the Bay. And like just from his, because we had exchanged socials, just from his socials, it feels like he lives a very fulfilling life. And there's just like so many stories and such. But when we were on our date, he asked me a question that I couldn't quite answer on the spot. And to your point, right, like he already had that question asked to him previously, or he's already thought about it.
Yeah.
And so when he asked it to me, I was kind of just like put on the spot, and I was just like, oh, I guess I'll have to think about that and I'll get back to you. But then his expression or his reaction made me feel like he had already made up his mind that I'm maybe not someone who thinks a lot or someone who cares for that sort of thing. I don't remember exactly what the question was.
Yeah.
But it just made me feel like he already judged me
Yeah.
because I couldn't answer his question.
Yeah.
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 So obviously don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think asking these questions are really like putting people on the spot. So like how they react is not an indicator of who they are necessarily. It's also just like an interview, right? Like just because someone doesn't know the answer right there and then when you ask it,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they don't have the right answer.
For sure.
Yeah. So
I feel like my struggle on first dates is I don't know how to, like, to your point of like, hey, you have these things that you want to know about the person. How do you balance that versus actually just having a fun conversation? Because sometimes you can talk about random things and it doesn't tell you anything about the person.
Right.
But you also want to know if you want to meet this person again. So my struggle is always like how much of it is too functional versus
Sure.
versus it's just too fun.
Yeah. I guess that's like as to before going on a date, right? Like you kind of think about where, especially I think as dating intentionally.
Yeah.
You kind of think about what you want to achieve by the end of that date, right? And
Yeah.
so I think asking like maybe pick 3 questions to give you kind of an understanding as to whether or not they hit the threshold of you wanting to go on the next date, I think is probably key. You don't need to go through all the questions.
Yeah, like tell me all your childhood trauma in
Nothing
5
like that.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because while I was doing the search on, you know, what questions to ask, someone on Reddit was actually like, they actually avoid asking any sort of questions because what they want to do is see if this person can engage in natural conversation. And I was like, that's also, I guess, a way, you know,
How do you have a
Why do
conversation?
you?
How do you? I have so many questions. How do you have a conversation without asking any questions?
No, so they were like, it should just come naturally. So
Oh, just don't think about
yes,
it. Don't pre-prepare.
Don't think about what questions you might want to ask. Just like go into it, and then naturally the conversation will come. Because that person was like, what they care for is being able to have a natural conversation with this person and their partner. And I was like, that's also fair.
Yeah, in an ideal world, but if I was just meeting us, like sometimes I do to like,
Stranger.
yeah, I need to revise what this person's
Sure.
interests are so that I
That's true.
know what to talk to them about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yes, yeah, it would be nice if everybody can get engaged in natural conversation. But natural conversation, honestly, comes from common ground on something.
And when you're meeting someone on an app, for instance, you don't know
Right.
anything about them.
Right.
Right.
So
I was going through my Hinge profile questions, and the questions are so dumb that I've put up, but I think they're so.
say more.
But I'm like, it's also not. And someone told me this after the first date. They said that your profile is not a good representation of who you are.
Interesting.
And it's a compliment.
Oh,
Because they're like, oh, your personality doesn't come out through your profile. And I
we
was,
need to review this profile.
but I was like, I think the questions were just like fun icebreaker questions, but it really doesn't tell you anything about the person.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's tough to like on a profile. You also don't want to put too much information on your profile because you don't want to overwhelm the person and come across as someone who, is just not private and just throws all these like things and facts about them out there.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I think it's a balance.
It is a balance. Yeah, I agree with your point about, there are some things you definitely want to know about a person, about whether you want to like move forward. Like, do they even want a monogamous relationship, for instance, right? The non-negotiables you do want to find out. I think there is a balance between that too, and maybe it takes practice, because when I go on a date with someone, I kind of want to know what their past relationships have been like, because I think it's a very telling. What people have gone through, I think, reflect who they are right now, right? They've become this person because of their experiences.
Yeah.
So when I ask people about their like past relationships, a lot of people think it's a trick question.
Yes,
And
I was just gonna say this.
Yeah, and they think that, will they talk about their ex, and then will I judge them for talking about their ex? But it's none of that. I just want to know what their like life has been like.
That's actually a very, I would say, contentious point.
Yeah.
Some people like it when you talk about like a little bit about your past relationships on a first date.
Yeah.
And then other people think it's a red flag.
Yeah.
I think it's the way you talk about it, the way the question's asked, the way that you talk about your ex, the way that the conversation comes up. Obviously, I think like bringing it up out of nowhere, is almost a little, I think it's a little tricky, a little risky. But if it's like you're talking about like how you've got to where you are today, and what are you looking for, that sort of thing, then naturally it comes up. I think when it's natural, it invites the question, but obviously you don't have to dive into
like a retrospective on your last relationship. Yeah,
exactly.
I get that, but I feel like I want to know what, like, one thing I ask is, what is their longest relationship been like, and why did it end? And I think it's telling, because a lot of times what people's values are on why a relationship ended, and to each their own, right? But you're also trying to find out for yourself whether you are compatible with this person. But I think a lot of people think it's like a trap or like a trick question, or I'm trying to like get somewhere with it.
But I think guys who think like that, especially at our age, means maybe a little bit like who thinks that you're out to get them, or who thinks it's
like they're giving me too much credit. I don't I don't have that sort of game playing mentality.
To me, I think that's actually more of a problem than you asking the question itself.
Like their response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think like someone who is emotionally mature and stable will be okay with the question being asked, and they'll know how to respond to it.
Yeah. Do you ask about past relationships on the first date?
I actually think it's a good one. One of the prompts that I had when I was on that dating apps is what did you learn from your past relationship?
I like that.
I think it was actually one of the questions that I actually got the most response to. So I think like the questions that you ask on your profile really invites people to like write your message instead of just liking. And I think that was a very good conversation starter, because I think it's like lighthearted enough to not be like a trauma dump.
Right.
But it's also valuable in the sense that it lets me see if this person's reflective.
Yeah.
Right. Because every relationship has its learnings and lessons. And if you're coming out of a relationship not knowing what you took away from it, then I think like that's actually an amber flag.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also don't like it when people badmouth their exes.
For sure. That would be like a huge red flag for me as well.
Yeah.
But that one I had on my profile, and if they didn't answer, then I would ask it on a first date. Like when was your longer, or when was the last relationship you were in, and what did you learn from it? Because like this is more focused on him and the person I'm on a date with rather than their ex.
Yeah.
Right.
Or that relationship.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Have you, to your point about, hey, you want to go to a date and you definitely want to know some things about a person before you end the date, what are some of the questions that you ask where it is important for you to ask, but it's also okay to ask, you think, on a first date?
Yeah, I think the ones that we went through, so like the last relationship, what they learned from it, because I think I really care for emotional intelligence. So someone who is able to self-reflect and is self-aware, I think is a huge sign, a huge green flag to me if they're able to do that. So I usually like ask that question, and then also like, what do you do on a typical Sunday, because that would align, I think, with my values and how I'd like to spend my weekends, especially because they're so valuable to me.
Yeah.
And then another question that I like to ask is like, what are they passionate about? So, like, do they have a side project that they're doing outside of work? Speaking of which, asking about work is arguably the worst question, I think, on a first date. I think it's okay to be like, hey, like, you know, what work do you do, is like a little bit of context as to who they are.
Yeah.
But talking too much or jumping into what's happening at work or jumping into the projects at work is a little too much.
It is a lot. I've actually recently been on a date where the conversation was fine and we were talking about something totally non-related to work, and then we started talking about work, and then it only became about work, and you could see that the tempos or like kind of died out, and it was very much a networking conversation after that. And it wasn't a bad conversation, but it was like not the intent of the date.
Right.
So I was like, that was really a aha moment of to not talk about work.
For sure. And it's funny because I actually was talking to a friend. He moved from SF to another city outside of the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it's only a Bay Area thing to talk about what company you're working at.
And
like,
what you're doing.
Yeah. And like the conversation then just like kind of goes downhill from there, because it's just only about work and what sort of projects and technologies you're using. And especially now, like AI is being spoken about so widely, like
MCP or CLI.
It could so quickly turn into just like a networking event about sharing ideas. It's actually so bad, because then that kind of derails the purpose or intent of the date.
I get having a conversation that's intellectually stimulating.
I appreciate that.
Correct. But I feel like I've been on dates where it's only been about that, and then I've come out of the date not knowing whether I even want to see this person again. And so while the conversation would have been or is intellectually stimulating, I actually don't know much about this person.
That's true. Unless they're very good at, you know, talking about that, but then weaving in like things to get to know you. And
or it just doesn't become about that.
Exactly. It's funny because I was out at a coffee shop and I saw these two people sitting opposite me, and they were talking about AI and like the tools that they were using, and it just felt very like technical. And then I asked the person that was with me if they think it's a date or not. And they were
like people watching.
Exactly, were people watching. And I was like, do you think this is a date? And they were like, no, it doesn't look like a date. It's like, it looks like, I was like, yeah, it looks like a networking event, because they were only talking about it. Maybe they're co-workers. And then like 30 minutes, we were waiting for a restaurant down the road. And then we went to the restaurant, and they were also going to the restaurant. They walked by holding hands. And we're like, whoa, that's so interesting that they were like, it almost looked as if they were just co-workers networking, and it turned out they were actually a couple.
Yeah. One of my friend was saying that he walked by, like he was also people watching, and he was like, this couple, it was their first date, and they were talking about MCPs, and he's like, no wonder we all are single. And I'm like, hey,
I think that's like a very Bay Area thing. So it's just kind of a good reminder, which is why we're doing this episode, to kind of give yourself like a reminder when you're on a date, as easy as it is to just derail and talk about, things like that, because we're so engulfed in it.
Yeah.
Like it's just,
It's not your whole life.
yes, exactly. And you shouldn't let that represent who you are.
Yeah. I think it's that, like, you come across as so one-dimensional. Even for yourself, like, if you're only talking about your work, what is this other person going to want to go on a second date with you for?
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say, like we said, we appreciate intellectual conversation, and I think that's important for me, which is why my third question would be like, what are you passionate about? Because I like to know if they spend their time educating themselves, learning something new, doing something that they're passionate about. And that can be like, it doesn't have to be like necessarily educational in the sense of like theoretical work, but more so like, is there something that they're passionate about and they're wanting to learn more of and develop their skills in? I think like that's important for me. I think those three things, if they hit them the way that I would want my partner to be, then I think there would be a second date for me.
Okay.
How about you?
I think there are some things I definitely want to know about a person on the first date. I think the one thing that I ask is whether they're religious, because I'm not, and I think that's a huge value misalignment.
Yeah, for
difference. Like, if this person is religious, then that's totally fine. But if I think a lot of people who are religious want partners, or that's been my experience, who also are in of faith, or encourage or even participate in their faith, right? So I think because I'm not religious, that's something that I want to know right off the cuff.
For sure.
And then I also want to know what what their typical like life trajectory is looking like. Like, a lot of people, because we're in our 30s, they like want kids really quickly. And so I would want to know whether that's like a deal breaker for them, or what their timeline is. And I know, like, I was recently, I think last year I went on a first date, and after that first date I went to meet a friend, and she was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "It was really fun." And she was like, "But you look disappointed." And I was like, "Yeah, but we didn't talk about anything real." And she's like, "Yeah, but first dates are you can just have fun on the first date." But I was also like, "No, but I also want to know these things." And I felt bad that we didn't cover those topics. And so, yeah, I agree that first dates should be fun, because you do want to know whether you enjoy this person's company at the end of the day, right? But I think there are some things that you would want to cover. And so that's why she was like, "Oh, no, you don't have to be like, it's not an interview. Don't ask all these questions. Just have fun." But I was like,
also, like, I think because we're dating intentionally, like, you can't just have fun in the sense that, you don't talk about anything meaningful on a first date anymore.
Yeah. Something that has come up with a lot of guys have actually asked me about dietary preferences that they've asked.
We know how I think about this.
Yeah, I don't know if we've discussed that.
No, but like the situationship I was in ended because of dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
On my end.
Yeah.
Because I'm pescatarian, and he's a heavy meat eater, and so he said that he couldn't date me because he couldn't share his love for food.
Yeah. And if the fact that person is bringing this up means that it's very important to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was funny because, like, and I encourage people to be truthful and honest on their first date, because I actually did say that on like first or second date, and it was only after like 3 weeks that he was like, "Oh, he can't do it."
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, yes, you ask these questions, and you want to make a first good impression. So you're like, "Oh, maybe I can be okay with that." Yeah.
And then the more you spend time with the person, you're like, "Oh no, it is a deal breaker."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's rough, because that's sort of also what dating is.
Yes.
You're trying to see whether this person is,
Yeah.
you can go the distance with this person, and a lot of things you discover as you date them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Some other good questions, maybe we can just list them. So we did our research on, well, I did the research. No, I'm kidding. We did some research on like from therapists or from like psychologists on like what questions are good to ask on a first date, so that it can be more engaging and invite conversation so that you can learn more about the person. So just quickly running through them. Some of them include like what makes you happy. I think that's quite a deep question, but it could be lighthearted if you make it one. But essentially that's kind of just to see if this person is like more naturally a positive or negative person, I think. And then also what they are grateful for, what things make them happy. It could be as small as having a really good meal today. Then you're kind of like, oh, okay, they're like someone who is super grateful for the small things in life.
Yeah.
Or the people who are like, oh, money. Then you're kind of like, oh, okay, this doesn't align with my values. Yeah, so that's a good question. What makes you lose track of time? I like this question a lot. I think this is almost along the same lines of what are you most passionate about?
Yeah.
But it's to ask it a more fun way.
Yeah.
So I'd actually use that line more than what are you passionate about?
Yeah. That's a good one.
That is a good one. Another one that was mentioned is, what is a risk that you've taken that stands out in your life? I like that one a lot.
I like that one a lot too, because it gives you so much perspective on a person's life journey.
Exactly. And if they're self-reflective of their journey, and if they're grateful for how they've changed and evolved and developed as a human.
Yeah. I think it's also like one of the recently I was talking to someone on a date and they asked me this question, and what was the biggest risk you've taken? And I said that it was moving to America as an adult, where I didn't, like, I had friends but I have no family here. And it was like setting up a life for myself, right? And setting up a career for myself. And when I said that, they were so empathetic about it because they had not moved around a lot. And so the fact that they were able to have the like sort of empathy for me to have gone through that process and then been like, wow, that's a lot. And
that also shows who they are.
I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Very good question.
Because you found it?
Because it was on the internet. Okay. Who is the most influential person in your life and why? This is a good question. I think like that again goes to show what sort of person they are. If they look up to someone, and if that person's value aligned to yours.
Yeah. In SF, I get a lot of Elon Musk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Is the most influential person in their life. Yeah.
You can let us know your comments though.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I get either Elon Musk or their fathers.
I feel like the father one could be good, depending on what the father's like.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like, especially if they are entrepreneurs and their fathers have done their own entrepreneurial journey. That makes sense, yeah.
That makes sense. And then the last one that I think is worth mentioning is, what's your favorite childhood memory?
That's sweet.
I think that's a sweet one. And also I think that kind of goes to show what sort of family they grew up in, and can invite a lot of questions too. Yeah,
like it's like, what sort of childhood did you have? What was your relationship with your parents, your siblings?
That could be risky though, because it might invite childhood trauma.
And that brings us to what not to ask on the first day.
Exactly. So like Rima said, I think we've already had our fair share of certain dates that maybe didn't go as planned. And there were some bad questions asked. So what are some of the bad questions? Like you said, like trauma dumping, I think is a big one.
This one time at 8 p.m. on a Monday evening, this guy is like, what are your childhood traumas? And I was
on
like,
a date, on
a first date.
Wow.
And I thought it was a joke, but he genuinely wanted to know. And I'm like, that's so heavy for the first date.
Exactly. And it's also very, to me, it's almost a little bit of not respecting privacy, because I think that's something it's like a different level of getting to know someone.
It's such a personal question.
It's such a personal question. I think like on a first date, you're still trying to get to know a stranger that you're meeting for the first time. Like you don't ask a stranger such deep questions.
Right? Or personal ones. I think a lot of people think, and maybe when I'm guilty of this sometimes, I don't know. But I think a lot of people think just because you agree to come on a date with someone, you have to be completely open to this person. And like there are no holds bars and anything goes.
I think sometimes people conflate trauma dumping with intimacy. I think like often people think that me talking about my trauma is a sign of vulnerability, and me showing you that I'm inviting you into my intimate life. And while that could be true, I think it takes kind of a sort of understanding that you've both gotten to a point where you're ready to go into the next level of depth and personal sharing.
Yeah. And when this person asked me this question, it seemed like they had an answer already ready to
I
go
see.
and they wanted to share. So it also felt like they just really needed someone to listen to them.
Right.
And so that was like, I thought, a very heavy question for the
sure.
first date.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think like that is too much for a first date.
Yeah. Similar to trauma, I think I've been asked whether I'm in therapy. Also not like as a conversation that was just flowing. It was like, hey, I need to know these like ABC things about you, and is this one of those things? I think that's also a very personal question to ask. I'm completely okay to talk about mental health issues or
Right.
like how you manage mental health and
For sure.
and maybe like say whether I'm in therapy or not. Down the line, I think to your point, there needs to be a certain sort of level that you get to a person before you can have these conversations.
Yeah, I actually take back what I said about like this being too heavy for a first date. Obviously, if your first date is going really well and you feel like you and this person are moving at the same speed and level
Yeah.
in terms of getting to know each other, then sure, maybe naturally that might come up.
Yeah.
And I think that would be okay if both people feel like they're on the same page about what questions are being asked.
Yeah.
It's only unfair and kind of overstepping, I would say, when, for example, you didn't feel like you were at that stage yet
exactly.
to share that. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's also, I think there's a balance of like having a relationship with someone and then being able to ask them these questions. And also
Definitely.
you want to know this about someone. Like I get it.
Definitely.
Even I would want to know this about someone,
Sure.
but you sort of have to pace yourself
Yes.
before you get there. And I
Yes.
think it's when you ask these questions can also derail the first
Yeah.
date.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's when you can feel like interrogated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like all these like bad questions are essentially just questions where you don't respect the person's boundaries, and it's almost as if like you're rushing too quickly to get to know this
Yeah, like
person.
you're assessing them and you have this checklist that you want to get.
Assessing is a good word.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So just remember, like, you know, first dates should be fun. It should be you get to know the person. So ask questions that invite conversation and discussion. I think that's most important.
Yeah, but don't step into their personal space uninvited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually have a friend who also went on a first date, and I believe that someone asked them if they were on the spectrum on a first date. And I was like, wow, that's so crazy that my friend had to be asked this, because first of all, like, this is such a personal question.
Yeah.
And second of all, you don't really ask that ever. Like,
Yeah.
it's a personal question, and it's a conversation that you can have with the person maybe later on when both people feel like they're getting to know each other at a deeper level. But this is not a question you ask.
Right. I think it's like, what's the litmus test? Would you ask your coworker this? If you can't ask your coworker this, don't ask your first date this.
That's true. And I guess like my friend did actually really well in the response, and they said something like, well, I guess everybody's on the spectrum, right? And I think that was like a perfect response.
Yeah. I thought they handled it very well, because if someone asked me if I was on the spectrum, immediately I would start thinking about every interaction I've had with this person or everything I've said to this person and think why this person thinks that.
Yeah.
And then it's not even about the date then.
Right. Yeah. So remember to ask questions that, I think like asking questions is an art in itself, right? Like,
for sure,
you need to be able to consider the other person's feelings. I think my litmus test is I would only ask the question if I would be okay it being asked to me.
That's a good metric.
Yeah, right. Like, if you don't think, like, I can't imagine that this person would be okay being asked, are you on the spectrum?
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but some people just have low EQ.
Could be.
And smooth brained.
Could be. Yeah. How about you? Any other bad questions that you've been asked or heard people asking?
I don't understand why people need to know sun signs.
Star signs,
astrology signs. That's my personal gripe. I feel like if someone were to judge me just based on my...
To each their own.
Correct. But that's what I'm saying. I think it's a bad question, because what are you finding out about me by asking me what my sun sign or my astrology sign is?
How do you think about MBTI? The Myers-Briggs.
I believe the Myers-Briggs. Like, I see the value of that personality test. Of all the personality tests,
Yep.
I think that's the one that I see the value in. Because in that, like, if you know if a person's introverted or extroverted, you know how they like to recharge, right? I think that's a very important thing to know about the person you're dating.
That's true. And that's actually one of the questions that I ask a lot on the first. But yeah, I remember asking it because I asked it frequently on dates. But then someone was actually taken aback that I asked that.
They thought it was personal.
They thought it was dumb.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like what you think about star signs.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm like, this is scientific based.
Someone asked me on a first date what my big three are, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And it was something about astrology, and I was like, the fact that this is important to you.
Goodbye.
Yeah. I'm like, there's someone who'll love you for
who you are.
Yeah.
It can't be us though.
If I don't even know what you're talking about, but this is the thing that you want to know on a first date.
I think it's fun to talk about it.
Yeah.
So if they ask me and I was just like, oh, I don't know, but tell me more about it, then I can gauge if they are serious about this. If they are serious about star signs and believe that our compatibility
is hinged on us,
the star signs, then I'm out.
Yeah.
But, if this is just like a fun conversation, because it's interesting, that people believe in that sort of thing, and to each their own.
You read Femina India horoscopes.
Exactly. But that to me is just fun entertainment.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like if someone had to ask me that on a date, I think it's just fun entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of people make their decisions in their life based on their or on astrology signs. Like that's a whole market. So I think I think maybe it's a good question if someone asks me this. Then I know that we're not like compatible. But I'm like, what do you gauge from it?
But it's also maybe because we haven't been engaged so much to believe it. So, it could be that too.
I mean, I'm a Gemini and the whole thing that I have is that it's split personality and hypocrite and double standards.
Correct. Yeah. So
maybe it's a good question. Yeah. What are some other bad questions you've been asked or you think are bad questions?
I think just in general, when they ask me yes, no questions. But I think it's because I'm extroverted and I like to chat. I'm like a chatterbox. So I think it's okay with me. So like they'll ask me a yes, no question, but then I'll add more fluff to it so that the conversation can continue. But generally I would feel like that's a very not thoughtful question. Obviously, I think like that's not to say I hate every single yes, no question. Like some questions are really just yes, no. But if that's all they have to bring, then I don't think that would work for me because I enjoy conversation in a relationship. Like I enjoy it when I'm able to talk about everything and anything to my partner.
Yeah.
So just to wrap it up, I think like basically the first dates, the goal is to have meaningful, engaging conversation. And so just remember to like be open to asking open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And rather than direct and invasive questions. And I think like a good one is like paying attention to their responses.
Yeah.
Like because that helps you ask your next question, your follow-up question, and invites more conversation.
Yeah. The thing about having a laundry list of questions to go through and you're just like answer this, it sort of doesn't, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not getting to know the person truly by having a conversation with them. Right. You're just looking for these like check boxes that you want to finish, but it's actually, like I said, you're doing a disservice to yourself.
For sure. And just remember, like, be present. I think that's what we mean by like paying attention to their responses. Like, don't already be prepping your answer while they're still answering. Just be fully engaged in what they have to say, I think is a good one.
Yeah.
And then other ones is like share anecdotes from your life. Like that's what I was saying. Chatterboxes kind of tend to do that.
Yeah.
Share personal stories of your own life, so your date can get to know you. Honestly, it's not just sitting around waiting for them to ask you questions. I think often it's also you just sharing, because once you share something personal and intimate, that also invites them to do the same.
Yeah. This is a skill. I actually learned this at work where you get people to open up by being vulnerable yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's an important lesson I've just learned in the last few years.
But yeah, just remember that, first dates are supposed to be fun, but also just remember like conversation is meaningful. Yeah, so that kind of sums up like all of the questions that we think are good and bad. And having done a little bit of research on it, I think we have now a list for you to pick and choose from when you go on your first dates, and let us know how it goes.
Yes, please let us know if you ask someone for the sun sign and how it goes.
Or if they ask you. This is not an exhaustive list of all the questions you can ask, but I think there are good starting points.
Yeah. And you're talking to two people who had to look up first date questions, so we're definitely not experts.
This is us just sharing what we found because we were on this journey of looking for engaging questions to ask.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are what we wanted to share. Anything from you, Rima Keeks?
No, I think that's a wrap for today.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. Let us know your thoughts. Share your dating stories. We're always interested.
Love the dating stories.
We're very nosy.
Yeah.
So. But only for the good things.
Correct. We only want good things.
Exactly. So yeah, thanks for joining on our podcast today. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Toodles.
Bye.